Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. A tale of gratitude, love, and choices that cut deeper than words. Tuna, a single mother, stood at the crossroads of her life, between staying in Alex's home filled with care, or returning to the farm where her past still lingers. But what truly made her decide to leave? Was it guilt, pride, or something more hidden? Alex, busy with contracts and dreams of a shared future, had prepared everything for her return. Yet, did he realize that silence between them could change everything? And when he discovered Tuna had taken the child to visit her former husband, would his heart burn with anger, or would he choose forgiveness? Stay with us until the end of this video to uncover the quiet storm behind Tuna's decision. And if you enjoy these untold stories, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach our goal of 1,000 followers. Your support means the world. The morning unfolded with a stillness that felt almost fragile, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Tuna's voice, gentle and low, carried into the quiet room where sunlight traced pale lines across the floor. She greeted the day not with triumph, but with gratitude. Every word she spoke seemed to bow humbly before the unseen weight pressing on her shoulders. Her heart lingered on Alex and his mother, two figures who had sheltered her through nights of exhaustion and mornings of worry. Their kindness was a harbor, but a harbor could not replace the open sea that stretched before her. She knew that as a single mother, her journey was destined to be long, lonely, and demanding. Yet, even in her frailty, she spoke of strength. For her child, she promised resilience. For her child, she promised to weave a better life out of the fragile threads she had been given. As she whispered her vows, the sound was not loud, but steady, like the rustle of leaves stirred by a cautious wind. It was the voice of someone who understood the quiet battles fought within the heart. Her eyes may have glistened with unspilled tears, but her lips carried a smile for the sake of her son, who had yet to understand the sacrifices written in silence. And so the first light of day did not bring certainty. It brought a fragile hope, wrapped in the tenderness of a mother's devotion. Sometimes, the fiercest courage is not found in grand declarations, but in the way one chooses to rise again, quietly, at the break of dawn. While Tuna's quiet vows lingered in the air, another rhythm echoed elsewhere, the hurried pulse of Alex's world. His office table bore the scattered traces of sleepless nights, papers marked in red, contracts folded with care, and a phone that never seemed to rest. Business was not merely survival for him. It was a battlefield where every decision could shape the lives of many, including hers. He dialed Adam, the voice on the other end clipped and distant. Adam was busy, perhaps even reluctant, yet Alex pressed on. The contract he insisted was not just numbers and ink, it was a promise of stability, a way forward. He knew the company hungered for output, for shipments to move, for trust to be sealed. More than that, beneath the professional tone, his thoughts circled back to Tuna. Every negotiation was, in its own way, an unspoken vow to her and the child she carried in her arms. The conversation ended with an agreement to meet. Fragile but vital. Alex leaned back, exhaling the heaviness from his chest. Outside the window, The day had grown brighter, yet the light only deepened the shadows beneath his eyes. The tension of business was never just about profits. It was about creating a home that might convince Tuna she belonged, that her future did not need to be fought alone. And so, with determination carved into every breath, he prepared to step into the world of numbers and signatures, carrying within him a longing that no contract could measure. The corridor was hushed when Alex stepped inside, the faint cries of a newborn softening into silence as Tuna cradled her child. He paused at the door, his presence filling the room with a kind of restless energy, half tender, half hurried. His eyes, though softened by affection, were already clouded with the urgency of business. "Have you eaten yet?" he asked gently, as though care could be compressed into simple words. Tuna shook her head, her smile faint, her body still weary from endless nights of tending to her son. He reminded her to take milk, to rest, to stay strong. Yet beneath his careful instructions, she felt the rhythm of his impatience. The clock was calling him elsewhere. For a moment, courage stirred within her. She opened her lips. There was something heavy she longed to release, something that trembled between gratitude and guilt. "Alex, I have something to tell you." The words hovered like fragile wings, aching to take flight. But Alex was already turning, one hand reaching for his jacket, the other holding his phone. "Let me hear it when I return," he said, voice firm yet distracted. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading into the distance, leaving behind the echo of what could not be spoken. The silence after his departure pressed against her chest. She lowered her gaze to her child, stroking his small hand. Some truths, she thought, arrive at the wrong hour, and sometimes an unsaid word is enough to change the shape of destiny. The house felt heavier once Alex's footsteps faded beyond the gate. Tuna sat quietly, the child's breath steady against her chest, while the walls whispered reminders of kindness she had received. His mother's care, his sister's presence, small gestures that once comforted her, now folded into a weight she could no longer bear. Gratitude, when stretched too far, becomes a quiet ache, an obligation that gnaws at the heart. She rose slowly, moving about the room with deliberate care. Every item she touched, blankets neatly folded, small bottles arranged by the bedside, seemed to belong less to her and more to the generosity of others. It was this thought, sharp as winter air, that convinced her the time had come. Downstairs, she sought the counsel of the elder in the house. With humility, she bowed, confessing that her strength had returned, that her child was growing stronger, and that she must return to the farm. The elder listened, his face lined with concern, and urged her to wait, to call Alex, to let him accompany her. But Tuna's resolve had hardened. Politeness could no longer conceal her decision. As she returned to her room, she pressed her lips gently against her baby's forehead. "We will go," she whispered. Not as a plea, but as a promise. The air outside quivered with the heat of the day, yet within her chest it was a storm of guilt, pride, and determination. Leaving was not betrayal. It was survival, a step toward reclaiming a dignity she feared might slip away if she stayed too long. Far from the quiet rooms Tuna was leaving behind, Alex's world surged with movement. papers slid across the polished table as Adam's signature joined his own. The contract was sealed, the figures agreed upon, and the weight of 200 million transferred like a silent pledge. For Alex, this was more than business. Each stroke of the pen felt like a brick laid in the foundation of a home he hoped would one day steady Tuna's wavering heart. When the meeting ended, he stepped into the brightness of afternoon with a renewed sense of purpose. His path wound not toward rest, but toward small shops and dusty stalls. He chose a fan, cool wind to soften the heat of summer nights. He tested a mat, cool fabric to cradle weary bodies. He purchased milk, carefully chosen for the fragile age of Tuna's child. At the farm, the concrete floor had been set, the walls nearly complete. Alex unfolded the mat, spread it across the floor, and placed the fan in the corner where the breeze would fall gently. He held the box of milk as though it were more than nourishment, as though within it lay his promise that neither Tuna nor her child would want for care. In the solitude of preparation, he imagined their return, the soft laughter, the quiet evenings, the fragile dream of family. Yet even in this act of devotion, shadows lingered, for he did not know that while he built, Tuna was already walking away. Evening settled like a veil, drawing long shadows across the courtyard. Alex returned home, weary yet glowing with pride. His mother and sister were already there, fresh from their outing, their voices light with laughter. They welcomed him with warm smiles, and he, in turn, shared his triumph. The contract had been signed, the future secured. Their congratulations rang like music, but beneath it, a hollow note waited. It was his sister who noticed first. The cradle in the corner was empty, the small belongings that once scattered the room now gone. She asked softly, almost in disbelief, "Where is Tuna?" His mother's face grew grave, her eyes averted. She confessed that earlier that morning, Tuna had come to her, asked permission, and spoken of returning to the farm. She had urged her to stay, but Tuna's resolve was firm. Alex stood still, the words settling like stones in his chest. The image of the fan, the mat, the box of milk he had prepared for her flashed through his mind, now bitter reminders of absence. And then the truth, sharp and unyielding, reached him. Whispers that Tuna had taken the child to visit her former husband. The revelation struck deeper than silence, like glass shattering without sound. In that moment, time seemed to pause. His breath faltered between anger and disbelief, between the instinct to walk away and the urge to fight for what he had hoped to build. The fracture was not in words or actions, but in trust. And sometimes, trust breaks more quietly than glass. The motorbike roared softly against the night air as Alex pressed forward, the road stretching long and uncertain before him. The cool wind struck his face, but it could not cool the fire churning within his chest. Somewhere ahead, Tuna was walking her own path, her child nestled close, her steps steady yet heavy with unspoken reasons. She whispered to the boy as they traveled, promising safety, promising they were almost home. Behind her choice lay a paradox. Gratitude for Alex's shelter, yet guilt for lingering too long. Strength regained, yet fear of depending on a family not her own. And deeper still, the pull of old ties, her visit to the man she once called husband. It was not betrayal spoken aloud, but it was enough to stir a storm in Alex's heart. At the farm, preparations already waited. The mat, the fan, the box of milk, all silent offerings of a man who had built a dream she no longer shared. He carried them in his mind like ghostly echoes, each one a question that cut deeper than anger. Would he meet her eyes with fury, or would he choose to listen, to understand, to stay? The horizon blurred where the road bent into darkness. Alex's grip tightened on the handlebars, not just against the wind, but against the breaking weight of silence. Love, he thought, was not always undone by loud betrayals. Sometimes it withers in the quiet distance between two people when choices are made in secret. The night offered no answer, only a question left suspended. Was his heart strong enough to remain?
Tử Na, một người mẹ thân, luôn biết ơn Alice và gia đình vì đã cưu mang chăm sóc cô trong quãng đường thời gian khó khăn sau sinh. Nhưng thế lòng tự trọng và cảm giác làm phiền Tử Na dai dứt trong khi Alice bận rộn với hợp đồng lớn chuẩn bị cho tương lai bằng việc mua sắm sửa sang và trang trại, thì Tử Na lặng lẽ rời đi. Cô xin phép trở về nông trại cùng mẹ và con, mang trong lòng sự định kiến hơi lẫn ân hận. Và ca trà xuất hiện khi Alex phát hiện Tử Na không chỉ rời ở nhà mà còn đưa con về thăm người chồng cũ. Liệu là tình cảm Alex dành cho cô sẽ biến thành tức giận và rời bỏ, hay thành đợi dông về chờ đợi?